to the MoxStars podcast. I am one of your hosts, Menace. And I'm here with Flash. What is up, dude?
Nothing much, man. Just about to talk about some Dr. Pepper and maybe some magic.
Woo! I am lit. I'm on fire this morning. You want to know why?
Sure.
Dude,
You know.
I drank a Dr. Pepper as soon as I woke up. That's first thing. First things first, the magical elixir. Dr. Pepper is, it's wonderful.
Is that like is that healthy?
You know what?
Dr. Pepper first thing in the morning.
There's a woman.
I know we love the beverage, but I don't know if I want to be on the record out there as like, yeah, get up in the morning, chug a Dr. Pepper, you're good to go. I feel like there's like liability that would entail there.
Here, I'll curb it right here. We're not doctors. That takes all legal. That's all liability shoved out the window, right? We're good.
Dr. Pepper is a doctor.
It is a doctor. So, whatever 23 herbs and spices they're using, we recommend them. But we are not doctors. I drink it in the morning. Should you? Question marks. I don't know. But not only that, am I excited and stoked? Freaking we're throwing a party on the show today because we have achieved 200 subscribers. Woo! 208 subscribers at the moment. Thank you all for your support. The Taeyong video just kind of exploded on Reddit yesterday. So a little bit more, a few more supporters than I thought we'd have. So here we go. We're back in the saddle. 200 subscribers. Cue the party music. It's happening. I'll edit it in. It's happening. It's happening. Yeah. We did it. If you want to support the show, if you want to know how all these other people got out there and they showed their support, they went on YouTube and they hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and they rung that bell for more notifications. Or they found us via all major podcasting platforms where if you leave us a 5-star review, you can make us look super duper cool. You can also support us directly via Patreon, like our official Pepperheads. For $3 a month, you get a free entry into each of our bi-weekly giveaways. Or you can become a cherry vanilla Pepperhead. Take that next step up. Like Will Rule, K Mr. K, UWP Quirt, D Mun 82, Tommy Cypher, Jacob Hibbard, and congratulations, Jacob Hibbard, by the way, Ravenlift, and Kyle Johnson. Thank you all for $5 a month. You can become a cherry vanilla Pepperhead and get 2 free entries into each of our bi-weekly giveaways, which this week I'm testing out a new type of giveaway. So we've been brewing. Specifically, I've been brewing. I'm a NAYA guy. NAYA done did it. I done did it. NAYA guy.
Guy gonna do it.
Yeah,
that guy gonna do.
I did.
That guy gonna do. Mama said that guy gonna do.
Just make sure y'all know what happened here today. Do you see Deadpool 3 yet?
I have not.
Have you seen the memes?
I believe Deadpool and Wolverine is the correct title.
Yes.
No, it's not. Deadpool and Wolverine. Wolverine with an N. I think it said Wolverine.
With a G?
With an M.
Maybe
a G.
I don't know. There could be a G somewhere in there. But I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you haven't seen it, get out there and see it. No matter how prepared you are, you're not going to be prepared enough for what you're about to see. But the giveaway this week, since I've been brewing.
How is that related to what we were talking?
I don't know. Well, the way you were saying,
get the word out there for Deadpool 3.
The way you were saying NAYA, like in the NAYA, like we were doing it there, sounded a whole lot like some Cajun French, like one of the characters that appears in the movie, but it's a spoiler, and I don't want to like, you know, if you'd seen it.
Bobby Boucher is in Deadpool 3.
The water boy himself.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we were like, you know, when that deal happened, we were like, when is the water boy gonna make his debut in the Marvel universe?
Here
That's
it is.
what everyone was talking about.
Yeah.
You know?
This is like, so basically,
and it finally happened.
The whole movie.
They were like, oh, Deadpool's entering the Marvel universe. We're getting Wolverine, like the X-Men characters in there. No, they buried the lead. This movie is debuting Bobby Boucher, the water boy, onto the Avengers.
Basically, the whole movie is one big nod to 20th Century Fox Marvel movies. Like all the cameos that you could ever want, some that you've never even seen before but make an appearance. And like the one that I'm specifically referring to is the star of the show and has created some meme potential out there in reference to like what you do at Chinese buffets, like you know, like how you spread, you know, like, you know, just let it be known what we did here today, and you know, tell everybody. And I don't know, I'm not quoting it exactly. Way we were saying Naya on it.
Now I got gonna do
exactly just like that. Sounds just like it. But the giveaway, we're doing a giveaway this week. We got there. We're circled back. We're going to be giving away one of our decks, specifically the one that you're seeing right now on YouTube, Baylen the Haymaker, which is the newest NAYA cEDH experiment, you could say, where I went through and I built it all of my own, like with all of my own style. I wouldn't say this is technically cEDH. There's still a lot of rough edges here, but it is the first draft in something that I believe could be explosive and powerful. Test it out your high power table first, then you know, make some upgrades to it, but you're going to get a fully proxied version of this deck with brand new sleeves and a brand new deck box and some MoxStars merch alongside of it. And let us know if this is something you're interested in. So we're going to do it one time. If you're interested in something like this, let us know, because we'll be doing a bunch of new decks and a bunch of different things, and hopefully making this sort of like our standard giveaway prize. Yeah, that's pretty rad. So
I think it's a fun idea.
Thank you. Just right off the top.
And if you've ever wanted to sit down at your table in your pod, be like, what's it like to be Menace? You can do this. You're going to get some of his world famous NAYA hijinks.
Yeah, Rube Goldberg machines, like, are what I excel in making. So
yeah, what kind of Rube Goldberg machines do you have going on? What sort of latticing have you constructed?
Well, with Baylen, the cool part is the deck is fun. I've played it, like, I've definitely play tested a few times.
At a minimum, like high power fun.
Yes. Yeah. That's like for sure is high powered fun because the mana base is rock solid. The power level of the cards in it is high. Could it potentially?
I think. Well, you're a NAYA guy.
I'm a NAYA guy.
What a NAYA guy gonna do is, like, you know, your NAYA packages. Like, you have that mana base figured out. You have, like, the must include staples in NAYA figured out. Like, you know what sort of contraptions you can throw in there. Like, what do you think your NAYA package is? Like, how many cards when you build a deck in these colors do you think you automatically have figured out? Like the mana base automatically.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I actually, on my Mox field, I have a cEDH NAYA Enchantress base, which is 82 cards. And you just go through and it is basically counting on the fact that you're playing like Stony Silence and Collector Oof. So your mana.
So is this Baylen deck like Baylen plus 17 flex slots plus your Naya base?
It is, yeah. It's my Naya base with a few like workings going on. So yes, not basically, yes, yeah, exactly that.
Heard it.
Yeah, I've gone ahead and I've done the work, and I've put the base together. So if you guys want to check that out and see what the base is, head over to my Mox field. I'll put a link in the description below. In other news. Oh, what?
So what do you think? I'm just talking about Baylen more. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
You're always on your Naya bullshit. Like, so what is the advantage of Baylen versus like Shalai and Halar versus other like Naya commanders that you've gone through?
Actually, I was just having this conversation yesterday with Guy, who is also trying to dip his toes into some Naya BS with Baylen. So we sat there and we were just sort of like brewing over on the Discord server and like figuring out what the nuance to this commander is versus other things. I think that automatically your mind says Rocco is just more explosive. Rocco gets you what you want, gets you what you need. And Baylen struggles with doing that because you are also at the same time on this side quest. While like Baylen says a lot of nice things on it, you are on this side quest to create infinite tokens. You are on this like, so while you
like, you might as well be winning by the time you use Baylen to win.
You should be winning with Rocco by the time Baylen is attempting. Yeah, you should have already won with Rocco by the time Baylen attempts to win. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I guess like with this list and talking about like Dockside and going infinite there and like creating infinite treasures for the Baylen thing, like that's what this deck feels like. It should be a direct sprint to Dockside loops so that you can draw your entire library, get infinite mana, and do the thing you need to do. Whatever your win condition is, you can accomplish it. So that's what the deck wants to do. But now with that being known, like as basically, since it is the most prolific combination of things in cEDH is to, Dockside is just the best card. You have to sort of disguise your motives. Otherwise, you're telegraphing your victories or you're telegraphing your game plan to, I don't know, straightforward. It's too straightforward and easy to interact with.
So it's like people will be like, well, I know I got to stop Rocco. You're still doing the same like Dockside of meal loops and everything, but like people necessarily don't know how to interact with Baylen. Is that the advantage?
Well, it's almost like I want to say like Rocco, even though you know what it's going to do, it can tutor up anything. So you don't have to declare what you're tutoring at the moment of casting. Where like Baylen, if it's not on the field and your board state says, oh, they can draw a card off of Baylen, I don't want to give them that, then I will interact here. There has to be a certain set of conditions for Baylen to work. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything. It's just a 4/3. And Rocco is just like, I can go get whatever I want as long as I have the mana to do it. So that's your nuance between the two. One is a direct creature tutor in the command zone that gives you a lot of flexibility and options in how to approach different situations, where this is a little bit more, well, it's a lot more RNG, where you have to set things up a specific way. You have to mulligan a certain way and, make sure you understand the commanders at the table to know how aggressively you should mulligan. But this is the problem with Naya is that it has always suffered from card draw. And so now we have a commander that says you can draw a card if you tap 3 untapped tokens you control. That's the first time we've gotten something with that ceiling of potential. So I think that's the big thing here.
So is the attraction for you is like, hey, you've now got card draw in the command zone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it. And we're going to be talking about Rocco later in the episode and how successful it has been in cEDH. And we'll have an expert in Tordeth on the show to help explain the whole, that Rube Goldberg machine. But yeah, Baylen's a really cool deck. So whoever ends up winning this giveaway, I think you're going to get a really cool, like a really great, powerful deck that hopefully you have a good time playing. And if not, you can unsleeve the PROXIED deck and enjoy your new sleeves and deck box and MoxStars merch. All right. Today's main subject is Rocco CABARETTI Caterer. And to give full respect to Rocco, we're going to have a regular pilot of the deck on the show today. It is Tordeth, who is a supporter of the show, has been on the Discord for a long, long time. We've been actually talking about brewing Baylen together as well. But another NAYA gonna get type of player.
Yeah.
Let's move it over to Tordeth. All right, PEPPERHEAD Nation, say hello to Tordeth, the master of Rocco.
Hello. I say master. Let's go with that. That's fine.
Yeah, that seems like appropriate praise for someone like you who has been piling this deck since, well, basically day one, right? I think since the day we met, you've been playing Rocco.
Right. So I started brewing this list when it got spoiled, because it really just said Court of Calling on a body, and Court of Calling's probably top 2 tutor in green, so let's run with it.
Yeah, you know, that was actually one of the first thoughts I had when I was thinking about this episode, was like, you know, we talk about all these NAYA commanders, we talk about all the things that they can do, but when we build these decks, the best cards in those decks are Court of Calling, Finale of Devastation, and maybe Green Sun Zenith, or now Invasion of Ikoria. Those are the best cards because they get you the thing that you need to combo and win the game. So why not just play Rocco? Because it's the best card in the deck, and you have access to it all the time. So it's amazing.
I think where it's also underestimated is you made the point of, right, you always have access to it. You can go ahead and kill my commander. I'm just going to get it next turn and the turn after that and the turn after that. So it kind of also reads, you can't attack me with ground creatures, and Rocco's unblockable.
Yeah, because it just gives me another tutor.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that's hot. It is like, usually people treasure their commanders, like they want them. They want them on the battlefield because their effect says, I do this thing in conjunction with other cards that helps me win the game, where Rocco is, I enter the battlefield, that is what I want to do. So if I leave the battlefield, that is totally and 100% fine. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to cover 4 lists for Rocco CABARETTI Caterer, and we're going to start with the earliest list on record on EDH Top 16 from Punt City. And if you guys aren't familiar with what Rocco CABARETTI Caterer does, I just so happen to know somebody who is familiar. Tordeth, would you mind telling us what the hell does Rocco do?
Sure. So you've got NAYA plus X and 3/1. The butt of 1 is actually super important. We'll get to that later. So when he enters, if you cast it, you may tutor your library for a creature card with CMC X or less, put it directly to the battlefield, then you shuffle. I emphasize may there because we'll get into some of the spicy anti-Rocco tech that exists out there. But then it just sits and hangs out as a 3 CMC creature going forward for the rest of the game, which is also super important for the deck.
Also important. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just so happens to be an uncommon from New Capenna, and it does, well, a little bit of everything. The text is so simple, but what it does is so powerful. So some of the key components for the deck revolve, and even at the very early stages of this deck's conception, I would say like one of the most important cards ended up being Wirewood Symbiote. I think it's just a staple for every Rocco deck that ever exists, because guess what? Creature typing matters, and Rocco also happens to be an elf. So Wirewood
too good.
Yeah, Wirewood Symbiote
It's too good.
Is unbelievable. Return an elf you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, activate this ability only once each turn. Activating it just once, oftentimes enough. This is able to untap your Bloom Tender, untap your whatever thing is tapping for mana or taps for more than one mana to help you get there. You can do it at instant speed on anybody's turn, so you can actually just wait until the moment of interaction, and bada bing, bada boom. It's crazy.
Well, not going to lie, it doesn't say target creature you control or even that you own. It just says target creature, and I would be lying if I didn't say I've untapped, say, a Kinnon's Bloom Tender to make sure they had the ability to cast a Force of Will to stop us from losing a game.
That is spicier. That's so spicy. It's like little things like that and little nuance like plays, which is why I wanted you here to talk about it today. Because like while it does say just set untap target creature, that moment of realization when it hits you is like a flood of knowledge, and you feel like you've just grown exponentially as a player because the possibilities have just like broadened immensely. Like that wasn't an option I thought I had before, but I totally do. Yeah, keep the game rolling at all costs, because what is it that as a play group that you guys say more than anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll give credit to Jake on this one. Step one is don't lose, and Wirewood Symbiote keeps you firmly into step one.
Yes. Play not to lose. Like there are certain decks that are built in the sense that you just send it and you play to win, but you don't interact with the table, and Nadu is that.
Mm-hmm.
Nadu's very much that.
Rogsai, I'm looking at you.
Yep. And when you're playing something other than that style of deck, your primary game plan should be play to not lose. So, yeah. Wirewood Symbiote gives you that flexibility, gives you that option. It also helps you abuse this little commander guy you got here.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking at the oldest list, the first thing off camera that we noticed is that this list is running Godo. Out of everything that it has, everything else is seemingly correct. This list, and we also noted that the other two lists that we were looking at, they aren't running Endurance. But this one just so happens to be running Endurance, which is great. You need it. But they just have a Godo just jammed in here. Like, yeah, Godo. I want it. So,
and I was going through this going, there's no way. There's no way. Yep, there's the helm right there on the bottom. But no, I guess there's an Enlightened tutor it up. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is a crazy list. This placed 10th at Punt City, which is the first tournament ever recorded by EDH Top 16. So it's cool to see where the deck started, like where this is like the first thing we can see back into time a little bit and see where it was at and move forward and see how far it has come. So this is a cool glance into, I guess, into the past, where I'm looking at it and they aren't even running a Rector.
No.
Which is weird because they're also playing Infernal Plunge. So and Altar of Bone.
That has to be able to get the mana to cast a turn one Treasonous Ogre, maybe, or even just get to that Godo.
Yeah, I think this was a Godo player who just switched to NAYA and said, well, this will let me tutor up the Treasonous Ogre, and when I do that, then I can pay all my life into getting Godo out and then getting the helm and winning that way? Question mark. Like, that's what it seems like on the surface, is like, that's the reason why they're running the Ogre. That's the reason why they're running Godo in tandem, while also having a Kiki-Jiki package in there, which is what I would still consider the most appropriate line for Rocco. Even at this point in juncture, it's just so effective and efficient. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Kiki-Jiki just sort of like... the deck sort of revolves around resolving that as your win condition.
Right. What I like about Rocco specifically with the Kiki line is if any of your 3 Kiki pieces get exiled, it still acts as a toolbox piece to advance your game plan forward, especially in this list when we're running 17 instants and the other 2 are on a lot less than that. The Felidar Guardian will flicker your endurance. If you need to flicker your endurance to put your creatures back into your list, the Guardian does that. If you need to get your Karmic Guide onto the battlefield to pull the Godo back to the battlefield, Karmic Guide does that without the Kiki-Jiki. Kiki makes a second dockside, or it's going to make you another Ranger Captain to pause the game if you need to crack in response to, say, Rogsire Blue Farm. So by themselves, they're just phenomenal Naya pieces anyway.
Yeah, it's like you said, a wonderful toolbox piece that I think everyone... Well, obviously you need to be scared of Kiki-Jiki, because if you see 2 parts of it, like, it's getting there. Like Felidar Guardian and Kiki-Jiki, it's like, it's there, like, but so it is part of a 2-card combo that is tutorable with your commander. But if you don't have that yet, right, you can play it, you can hard cast it potentially and still reap the value of the ability without putting a win on the stack. So I love that whole like Kiki into a Ranger Captain to press pause on somebody's turn. That is hot. That is hot. That is like thinking with playing 4D chess with the rest of the table. And
I think if this was me on this list specifically, I would also be on Hammer and Azan, so I could pod Rocco, get Godo, pod Rocco. Godo immediately comes in, gets the Hammer of Nazan, pod Rocco, get Felidar Guardian, flicker Godo, get the Helm, and now you've just won with 1 Birthing Pod activation.
That's that would actually, you would actually have multi-purpose for Godo then. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that is awesome. And it also makes it so that when your opening hand is so good, like the six cards are really good and you pick up a Helm, like it makes it so that Godo isn't dead if it's tutorable, if it's tutored. So I agree with that. It gives you flexibility. So an adjustment that I wish we could see who Hokey rules. I don't know if I just said a bad word. Feels like I said just a bad word right there. But who knows where they're at 2 years later.
The doctor forgives you.
The doctor, blessed doctor with the 23 blessings, has forgiven. Forgives all.
I noticed that this is on Sylvan Library also, because this was well before the ring, right?
Yeah. Also, boo, Sylvan Library.
Yeah. Well, and then we got Trouble in Pairs, and that just completely negated any reason to run Sylvan Library in any Naya list.
Right. How has that performed for you lately?
Better than the ring, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah, that was my projection when I saw it. When I saw it, I was like, this is going to give you a lot of cards. So when, I was happy to buy multiple copies at launch for like $7. So
I'll say the quiet part out loud. If I had to personally choose between an Esper Sentinel list and the Trouble in Pairs, I would run Trouble first because it doesn't dive to Bowmasters.
Yeah, but early game versus mid game, does the Esper Sentinel do enough early? I mean, you're obviously running both, but
for sure, yeah, I'm running both.
But like, what I guess it takes you a little while to get to Trouble and Bears, where if you're fighting against a send it deck like Rogsai, you're likely not going to see it hit the battlefield unless other players, like you guys are coordinated as a table to keep the game going.
Right.
Versus like an Esper Sentinel coming down is going to give you probably a few cards to help you get more information, maybe help interact with the table. I don't know. Like that's the upside of
in that
Esper
list
Sentinel.
Specifically, though. I'm also milling for a turn 1 or 2 Drannith and a Solitude.
Right. That's fair. Yeah, because you see it at the table. You're like, no, this is where I need to be to start the game in order to thrive, in order to give myself a chance. That's where I need to be.
And unless I go before Rogside, the Esper Sentinel is just a pitch card for the Solitude.
True. I think there have been a few games in my early career where I see an Esper Sentinel and I'm like first or second in turn order, and I just go, thumbs up, I'm good. And then just hope and pray that one of the 2 or 3 cards, hopefully 3 cards that I pick up on the first turn cycle is enough to interact with the rest of the table or give me the stats piece I need. So
I do like that this list is not on Ragavan. I love the monkey, don't get me wrong, but if you don't have the ability to hit with it, it's just dead. It's early game for sure. And the one thing I was going to say, and when we get to your list, I was going to say, you cut Ragavan. I did.
You did. We'll get to that a little bit later on. So this first Rocco list, I think, like, from what I'm gathering from you is that you're more agreeable with this list than you are the other two.
I am. I love the Force of Vigor here. I love the Calamity's Wake here. I love the Orm's Chant. I am an Orm's Chant apologist. That card can do no wrong. It is a one-person silence, and often that is what you need. Or if you know only one person has interaction, silence them. Yeah.
That's it's a beautiful card, and it oftentimes what silencing one player is oftentimes enough. Silence itself is great, and it is great for your turn and protecting your wins. But when you're trying to stop somebody from winning, Orm's Chant is usually enough to get the job done.
Correct. They will either counter it and then start a counter war that they probably can't win, or they just let it resolve and pass the turn and try it again next turn.
It also stops Kiki Jiki.
Yeah. If you're being attacked.
Yeah. Go for infinite tokens for combat damage.
I've used it to stop a Tivit attacking.
That's hot.
So I love the Altar of Bone here to sack the Rocco. Yeah. And then the Infernal Plunge, same thing. Like, this deck's whole core is figure out how to get Rocco back to the command zone after you've tutored out your dorks, to then either get your Treasonous Ogre or get the Godo directly.
Yeah. And as I move down the list, enchantments are rather thin. There's a Wild Growth, a Deafening Silence, Survival. We already talked about the Sylvan. That can be cut now. They can move on forever. They probably have. And then Food Chain. Of course, Food Chain is the card in the deck for a lot of people. While there are multiple win conditions in this deck, Food Chain Squee does allow you to tutor infinite mana for creatures, cast cast Rocco infinitely big every single time, get every creature in your library, present the win condition.
It's just the cleanest, and if you can land that Deafening Silence first, great. So you cast you have the Deafening Silence in play. You cast any kind of spell, they go to counter it. This person says Veil of Summer. Guess what? Everybody's out of luck.
Yeah. I love, for me, I'm a big Food Chain guy, and Guy knows it.
Yes.
Guy knows he pokes at me. He attacks me when I see a new Food Chain commander. He's like, "Hey, Menace, look at this one." I'm like, yeah. My eyes get big.
and Guy's a good enough player too to say, this is a good food chain commander versus not a good food chain commander.
Yeah.
Shout out to Guy. He's number one.
Guy, he's the number one guy. You know, I love food chain. I love NAYA. Those are my founding principles in cEDH. Now, as we move forward, so huge props to Hokey Rules for the Crouching Rocco Hidden Godo.
This is a good list. I like it a lot.
First one ever recorded. Got 10th. So justifiably, maybe just a few things went wrong throughout the course of the tournament that, you know, were out of their control. Let's move on to the second one. This one is called Rock Bottom.
Sure.
By a name Ross. That's the name. Ross.
And it was last updated 2 months ago, it looks like.
So they're playing around with it a little bit. This one isn't old by any means, but it is a variant. And the reason I selected this one is because we have a strange Phyrexian Dreadnought sighting that piqued my interest, and then I started looking deeper at a few other things, and then I started turning my head sideways. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I like this Phyrexian Dreadnought ad. So when we had talked off air about this one, we came to the realization that the Phyrexian Dreadnought here is completely modal. So it allows you to sack Rocco. It allows you to sack the Rector. It allows you to sack your Skyclave if you need to, heaven forbid. So it's a sack engine. Perfect. Yeah. It's tutorable. It's a creature.
You can get mana.
It for 1 mana. It's Invasion on 1. It's Finale on 1. You can get it with your Enlightened Tutor. You can get it with your E-Call. So all of your tutors hit it. Phenomenal. They
aren't playing an Urza Saga, which I would highly recommend.
In this situation, I completely agree with you, with the caveat of maybe they want to be able to control it, because if it comes down and the only thing to sack is itself, now you're kind of out. I mean, you have the Karmic Guide you can bring it back with, but Phyrexian Dreadnought says it deals 12 damage trample. So you Invasion for 1, then swing at it the next turn. Now this Dreadnought is truly unblockable, and you will just kill the table with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I guess the Urza Saga, like, yeah, you want the control, right? Because it has to happen. It has to happen when that third trigger goes. So, like, that they also have other options for that. You know, I think it's just like, if the Christmas Land scenario happens.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
But, you know, they have Soul Ring, Mana Vault, things that are going to, like, help push them forward even further. But, you know, or Lotus Petal for color. I don't know. Jeweled Lotus. But, yeah, I thought having the Urza Saga to grab the Phyrexian Dreadnought to sacrifice in the mid game, you know, a Rector would be disgusting.
That's so spicy. Yeah. I mean, we're looking at 13 artifacts.
No one would see it coming.
No, it's so late at that point. It's just over.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Most of the time when you're playing Rocco or you're playing against it or you're just looking at a list, you don't see both Rectors. This one likes both. This one wants both for a reason. So we'll get to your list in a bit. Do you prefer one, or is there upside to having two?
I have played variants where I'm on both Rectors. As long as you're really up the ability to kill both at a moment's notice, it's not wrong. I'm a big fan of redundancy. 2 is good, 3 is win more. So to have the ability to pivot, okay, your Academy Rector got exiled or stolen, or you are facing down the barrel of an Endurance on the dies trigger. Here comes Arena Rector to save the day. Vivian's just another birthing pod, but it's harder to interact with because once the trigger resolves, then you can sack. So if they decide to respond to the trigger and kill your 3-drop, you can go ahead and sack a 2-drop, say, get your Eternal Witness back, and start all over again. That's fine.
Yeah.
Vivian's really good. I run her by herself, because if I draw her, she just wins me the game. But I think it's better to do the Academy Rector, in my opinion, just because you have more enchantment hits if you had to choose one, right? Because your food chain's exiled. Okay, get a Smothering Tithe. And every turn, you're going to have your Rocco command tax paid for.
Yeah, or, you can go get if you're on Underworld Breach, like there's the potential there to pull the food chain back out.
Correct.
So, like, I see the upside with that, with the Academy Rector over the Arena Rector, because, yeah, like you said, one target versus potentially many utility targets, or going for Trouble in Pairs, or going, like you said, the Smothering Tithe, like mana, cards, whatever you need. If food chain is off the table, there is still potential here. So I think the first thing that I thought when I first made Rocco, it was an evolution of my Zakama deck. Like, okay. And because that deck was just fully geared towards food chain and killing Rector. And so when I just basically swapped the commanders, I saw like a ton of success. And I was just like, wow, Rocco's really easy to use. Like, especially with, as long as you go for food chain. And I was still very new to the concept of and how powerful this could be. Obviously way stronger than Zakama at the time. And then I noticed that Vivian in the same exact set would allow you to, basically achieve that birthing pod win. So I was playing that, God, what is it? That Adept, like it's the sneak attack for Planeswalkers. Oh, yeah. Because I thought, oh, man, if I ever get Vivian in hand for whatever reason, I can just, I could gamble for Vivian and then Rocco that to the field and then do the chain from that itself. I thought that was going to be, for me, the most efficient line to win the game. The deck has since evolved from that. Vivian with Arena Rector, everything. I've lost to Arena Rector, ability activated or triggering. Vivian arrives, bada bing, bada boom. Rocco goes back to the zone. Here comes the Felidar Guardian. Boom. Yeah. Here comes the here comes the Kiki Jiki. Boom, you're done. Honestly, if I had to choose between Arena Rector and Planebound Accomplice, I would be on the Planebound Accomplice instead, because the sneak attack trigger doesn't matter anymore. It's being flickered with Felidar Guardian, but also then it itself can be potted because it's 3 cost. Yeah, exactly. That's another thing that I love about it, is it just happens to be the perfect cost to help Vivian achieve what Naya wants to do with these Kiki Jiki lines. So this list also seems to be, we're starting to see Rocco become a lot more self-serving than our last list. So Hokey Rules is on 7 or 8 more instants, a lot less artifacts. It interacts with the table more. This one here really looks to be, how can I cast Rocco at the detriment to everything else? Yeah, or like more aggressively pursuing a combo rather than playing to not lose. Where, like Cloudstone Curio, I get where it's at with it, right? You generate so much with Rocco and Dockside. Boom, 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 boom. Are you on Cloudstone? Absolutely. You are. Yes, you are. Yeah, it's like that is a self-serving card, right? It is. But you got to be, there's a balance to it, I think, is ultimately what you have to strike. I actually usually abuse mine with White Mane Lion more than I abuse it with Dockside. Oh, let's go. So we can discuss that too when we get to mine. But I do find it intriguing for these two lists here that they're both on Carpet of... Oh, this one is not. Or the first one is not. Now we start to see the inclusion of Carpet of Flowers. Yeah. I think we started seeing... Blue Farm's always been popular, but I think
this is where we started to see a spike in blue farm. Tivit's really good. We saw an increase in blue. So if you got all these islands, why would you not want to get all that mana? And I do really appreciate a Carpet of Flowers include.
Yeah, turn 1, there's not much. There's not many things that are better, like to set up your second turn, than a Carpet of Flowers that triggers in your second main phase. Like,
agreed.
It takes you to another level.
You just really gotta make sure it's not at the detriment of your dorks, because if you sit across from, say, a Shalayan Halar and Yuriko plays a lot less islands than maybe some of the other ones do. It doesn't need to. It can play all of the non-island blue cards. Or what's another really good, like Tayum. Great, there's a pod.
Jeez, if you're playing in that pod, just mulligan out of it. Like
correct. Yeah. So this deck isn't on endurance to be able to pitch the Carpet of Flowers, and so now it's just a dead card for the rest of the game, and that to me feels a little wrong.
Yeah. In probably, like, if you're in that level of pod anyway, where Yuriko might be the only thing interacting with you, it's like, I think it's a race to the finish line for Rocco, which it also has. You have that potential here where, like, especially I think you've told me stories about presenting like multiple wins on like turn 2 or turn 3.
Sure.
Like, you know, it's like that is the hand you should be mulliganing for against a pod with very limited interaction, very self-serving decks.
Correct. And I can get behind that, but this type of deck will struggle against 3 blue farms in this Rocco list.
Absolutely. Yeah. Blue farm, I think that's ultimately why it converts at such a high rate. Is, you know, it's the card advantage, but it's also playing the free interaction, playing so many different cards that can allow you to press pause on the game or keep the game going and just give you enough time to hit your moment, to find your moment to win the game.
And that's why I'm baffled with the 25%, 30% conversion rate that Blue Farm has, plus the 1,000 or so entries. You're going to see one. Why are we at least not on another Orum's Chant? Why are we at least not on a way to just, how quick can I get to my Drannith Magistrate? This deck is not on Drannith Magistrate, this rock bottom.
Yeah. There needs to be redundancy, like in cEDH in general, right? So like running one silence, I'm on Orum's Chant in Shalai and Halar now, and I was at the last tournament I played in too. It was like one silence is a prayer. Like that is you looking to the Dr. Pepper gods, the lords of flavor, and praying that you pick it up. There is no tutor for silence that is not gamble. Like it is just, did I draw it this game? Is card advantage readily available in these colors? It's not. And it's not required.
I maintain you're really only ever going to see a third of your deck. So
maybe.
Yeah, and especially when you're not in a Rhystic Study package. So your hope and prayer on this is literally just that, if you're only running one of a thing.
Yeah, which is why the point of Orum's Chant being in the library is because it is a second silence. It is like, it allows you to double your chances of seeing a card of that level with that level of power and with that ability. So, it's like, I would say that even Interrupter being a newer card arriving on the scene, especially with Rocco, is another thing that, God, I wish there were more cards like it. But it's, like spells your opponents cast from graveyards or from exile cost 2 more to cast. This can also save the game.
Right. Card is gas, and it's tutorable with Rocco.
Totally. It is Tayum's best friend. Like it is disgusting in that deck, especially with a sack outlet. It is nobody can do anything. I'm doing everything. Yeah.
The biggest issue I have with even my Rocco list is when we're using Rocco as a toolbox piece, can I cast Rocco at instant speed to go get the toolbox pieces?
Yeah.
And that's great. The Aven Interrupter has flash. It should. Card's amazing. But if you don't have it and you only have the one of the ability, do I have the ability to Rocco for it at instant speed? And right now the answer is no.
No, not even emergent zone exists here. So and that is ultimately, it has been a problem with NAYA for a long time, is waiting for the turn cycle to come back to you. Like there are so many other decks in the format that don't wait for that. They don't have to wait for that. Decks like Talion, decks, even like Nimrus is a really is a strong deck in the right hands, but that's another deck that doesn't have to like sit and wait. Like Blue Farm doesn't have to sit and wait. They can just put a Born Upon the Wind like on the stack, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I hope somebody has something, and that's why you play Orm's Chant. That's why you play Silence. It's why you have multiples of these effects that you can continue to just keep the game alive for other decks who want to put a win on the stack at instant speed. So this deck doesn't have that ability, coupled with the fact they're playing just one Silence.
Right. Where I will applaud this list, they have decided to go up Blind Obedience, and we see the inclusion of Touch the Spirit Realm here.
Right. Which Touch Spirit Realm for an uncommon. Wow. How much has this seen play over the...
I won't build a white deck without it.
No, I almost cut it the other day and I said, you're an idiot. You don't do that.
It provides us everything we need as your opponent tech, while also resetting our Dockside, resetting our Felidar Guardian, resetting our Kiki Jiki.
Yeah, it is removal plus protection. And
correct.
Potentially more if you can expand your frame of mind, that it can do even more. So
what I really love about these channel abilities, specifically Touch in this instance, it will also allow you as a player to remove the stacks piece that's stopping you, specifically Opposition Agent in this list. The deck just folds hard to an Oppo. You can get rid of the Opposition Agent for your turn and put it back into place to make sure that when Sisay untaps, can't win.
It's it lifts the gates for you.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Same with like Draneth and like cards of the like. It raises the gates for your turn and then says, oop, I'm just going to close that. If it didn't work out for me and I didn't win the game here, let's just close those gates back down.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Give yourself an opportunity, give yourself a moment, and just that potential alone is enough to make it an auto include in anything in white. So, not to mention it is 3 mana for an enchantment that enters the battlefield and exiles an artifact or creature until it leaves. So, if you need that, it does that too. But, so this list seems a little, like we said, tilted in a more aggressive stance, self-serving, and doesn't have a ton of interaction or stacks. It is also on a Sylvan Scry, which I'm looking at, and I'm kind of like, why is it on Sylvan Scrying?
I think Sylvan Scrying will get you your Cradle in your high market. That's what it gets you.
Yeah.
But I think we should then just be on Emergent Zone at this rate.
For if you are playing a card that specifically gives you the land that has the utility to win the game, then yes, absolutely. Emergent Zone needs to be a part of this build. It kind of baffles me they weren't able to find a slot for it, considering, they could probably get rid of getting rid of Grim Monolith. That
was literally the card I was going to suggest to you.
Yeah, getting rid of that for the Emergent Zone is, to me, worth it if you're going to be on Sylvan Scrying.
Especially since we're not cutting a colored producing rock.
Yeah. All right, on to the next list. This one is called Salt Fat Acid Dockside, a Rocco cEDH build for 2024 by C121CKET. Great name.
That's a good name.
That just rolls right off the tongue.
It sure does.
All right, this one has, well, some different cards than the last list. You know, a few more like things that we can. One, Haywire Might being in the main. I love Haywire Might.
So good.
It's ridiculous. It's like one of those cards that you play it in limited. I played it. I like at the Brothers War pre-release. I pulled like 2 or 3 of them and had them in my deck, and I was like, "This is nuts! This is so good."
1 mana exile any artifact. It's so good.
Yeah, the 1 ring removal we had all overlooked for a while, and now it's
to be fair.
back.
It also exiles Heuristic Study.
And these guys aren't on Urza Saga. What is going on?
I don't know.
Oh, huge whiff.
Maybe so. Specifically in this is a turn 2 Rocco. Get your Haywire Might. You're actually going to get it before your Urza Saga ticks down. So specifically because our commander can get this faster than the land, maybe I can see why they would exclude it.
Yeah, that's fair. I am always I don't know why my brain works like in like worst case scenario moments, but I've dirtled enough to be like, well, if I'm very patient, this Urza Saga will do exactly what I need it to do. So I get it. Rocco moves far quicker than my brain can comprehend sometimes. And the Haywire Might is just the perfect piece to keep the game going. Again, another card to play not to not lose. It gets rid of Honorable Breach, gets rid of Heuristic Study, gets rid of Smothering Tides that would otherwise push your opponents forward. Or if someone else decides they want to play Trouble in Pairs, bada bing, bada boom, Haywire Might. Sweet.
Yeah. Oh, I would be so sad to have that exiled.
Yeah. But this deck is on Ragavan.
It is. It is a very good card. Ragavan should be treated like a mana dork in the list that it's in. But having your Ragavan get mental misstepped on turn 1 when you were relying on it being a dork just feels so bad.
It draws that attention. Like
it does. And not in a way like a Delighted Halfling will.
Right, like Delighted Halfling won't draw that attention. Either will Birds of Paradise. And Esper Sentinel potentially could as well, but like, yeah, those dorks, Alanor Elves isn't going to eat God, my brain just forgot the name of that card.
Our mental misstep.
Thank you. I just had a mental misstep, dude.
Go drink a Dr. Pepper.
I need one. But this deck has more stacks pieces than the last one, that's for sure. This is looking like it wants to slow things down a little bit.
I'm really digging the stacks aspect of this. My only hesitation currently with the list, if we're going to go Christmas Land, Elesh Norn Weather Machines, best card they ever could have printed for Rocco. The problem is if and when this gets cloned, Image exists. What's the new 2 Doctor Who one? I'm drawing a blank on this one. Flesh Duplicate?
Flesh Duplicate. Yep.
When Flesh Duplicate comes down, we're seeing an abundance of One Rings, so our Phyrexian Metamorph exists. Now your ETBs don't work.
Does Mockingbird copy this? Or can Mockingbird?
Probably would.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if Mockingbird can even do it. But regardless, you're right. The copies, clones are far more prevalent than I think we ever. I don't know. Getting twice the effect of something is really strong, especially when it's dockside. So when you are putting an Elesh Norn down, you are signaling, hey, I have a commander that gets double ETB effects. Well, not if I copy that card you just played. And
correct.
It's the stacks against the stacks. Yeah, they just offset each other, and then nobody gets ETBs, and everybody's sad.
So where I suggest to players that want to play Elish, Norn, and Rocco, I think they should consider Gandalf, because Gandalf doubles ETBs of legendary creatures and artifacts, but also allows your legendary creatures to be cast at instant speed, which gets over the hurdle that we talked about in our last list.
Wow. Yeah. Gandalf. That was not a card that I had even considered, if I'm being honest. That is... Go on, Master of Rocco. Continue.
Sure.
Riz it up.
For two white and 3, Flash, Avatar Wizard, non-human, so it's fetchable with all of your creature or all of your tutors, including the invasion. You may cast legendary spells and artifacts as though they had Flash. Looking at you, Cloudstone Curio. Looking at you, One Ring. If a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. So we'll also trigger your Cloudstone Curio an additional time, which allows lists that are on it to pick their dockside back up as well.
Why does this do so much? This was like...
Because it's a mythic rare?
I know. Oh, it's just like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, what? Like, we all read this, correct? And then we all just read Bowmasters and One Ring and said, yeah, those are not, this is nothing compared to that. But now that I look at it again, legendary spells and artifacts as though they had Flash. This also has Flash. If a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, wow, it triggers an additional time.
So for a stacks variant of Rocco, that card's phenomenal. And it'll allow you to just drop your pieces. You could even go up some more rule of law effects. Play a piece, pass. Play a piece, pass.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt you.
No. And you can go ahead and clone it all you want to. But so, as an example, I can cast my Perforos in this list for free or at instant speed. I can cast my Emil at instant speed. The dockside already exists. I flicker, and now I'm killing the table through a One Ring because Perforos doesn't target.
Gross. That is disgusting.
I also noticed that this list is on Rurikthar. He is one of my favorite stacks pieces, hands down. You can cast that at instant speed with Gandalf.
Yeah.
So your breach lists are going to go off. Okay, well, I hope to God that they have the 24 life that it's going to take to get through it. And usually they won't because they just ad naused.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. God, Gandalf. I'm gonna be putting that in some lists here real quick. Oh my God. It's legendary permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Or an artifact entering or leaving. Yeah. Wah wah wee wah. Goes right into my my maybe finds a way into my Baylen list. We'll see. Gosh dang.
Do you have any when this creature dies effects? Or
no, but I might have to find a way.
I guess that doesn't work because it's in the graveyard and it no longer sees Gandalf. But if we have any kind of there's a new blue frog in Bloomburrow that does something to the effect of when a card leaves the battlefield for any reason, draw a card.
Yeah, Dour Port Mage.
Yep, goes great with Gandalf. Now it's doing it twice. Yeah. And heaven forbid you have a Delny, it's triggering twice and triggering twice.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy Gandalf. So the rest of this list, before we get into yours, seems pretty straightforward, very similar to the last one as far as instants go, like no Orm's Chance specifically. And then we have a heavier enchantment package here. Seeing as this was last edited 5 months ago, that was before Murders at Karlov Manor, maybe just around. So Trouble in Pairs would have been seen They would have been able to see Trouble in Pairs, and they chose not to put it in here.
And that just baffles me. They're still on Wild Growth, which feeds a Dockside. I would rather be up another Dork. I see a Birds of Paradise, I see a Halfling, but I don't see a Bloom Tender in this list.
Or an Avacyn's Pilgrim.
Yeah, or the Avacyn's Pilgrim. If we scroll down and we look at our ratio, we're 35% white. I think a Pilgrim gets slammed into this list above both the Finhorn and the Llanowar Elves.
Right. Yeah, this is like, these are the little nuances. These are the little things that when you're looking at when you're at the end of the day and you're wondering why you're not sitting in the top 16, or you're wondering why you're not at, competing for the title, that those little things add up over the course of like the hundreds of reps that you put in with a deck. Like, the Wild Growth, I love Enchantress builds, and so I play Wild Growth alongside my Dorks, just due to like Sarah Sanctum, and I'm a big fan of Sanctum Weaver. So like those help push me forward. But in builds that aren't focused on that, like you said, it is just a Dockside feeder. Like without some way to hinder Dockside, like now we're looking at Baylen as a potential like NAYA stacks commander that can work through Stony Silence. Like,
right.
It's like, okay, now I can lean heavier into enchantments if my primary focus is to pull a Stony Silence or mulligan for a Collector Oof or a Null Rod or a Karn. Like, boom, great. That's lovely. But like, if without any of those options, without any way to tutor those options out, they aren't even on Oof. They're just on Manglehorn. If I'm looking correctly. Yeah. They're not even playing an Oof. So, and
I might even cut that. I might even cut the Wild Growth for a Collector Oof. And if you're worried about the fact that you can't tap your Birthing Pod, well, you're on Cloudstone Curio. Cast any other creature and put your Oof back to your hand.
Yeah, push it back or find a way to kill it. I did like something like figuring that problem out is a lot easier than figuring out the problem of my opponent won and I'm not doing anything.
Correct.
I'm going home. Mm-hmm. So like, yes, that is a quick swap that I definitely would make in this list. They're playing Archon of Emeria. We talked about like having Gandalf just then to get around like rule of law effects. Mm-hmm. I think that if you're going to be running an Archon, you need that instant speed ability.
Agreed.
So there's another slot that opens up here. We're just picking apart C121 CKET. God, that just rolls right off the tongue. But this deck has a lot of weaknesses. And the thing is that the reason that I pulled this list, one, it was interesting, had a lot more variance in cards versus like some of the other lists we've already talked about. But this won a tournament with 60 plus players.
I love it.
Like, that's what this did that. And we're sitting here like, what the hell? What's going on?
I would love to talk to this creator, specifically this Minskin Boo. Did it perform in the finals pod?
Did it do what you needed to do throughout the course of the day?
Now I want to bring my build to that tournament and see how does even something that I've built hold up outside of my own personal meta. That's kind of the dream right there.
Yeah, that's the competitor in all of us, right? Is like we see something that did it, right? That got there. You know how many lists I've looked at with Shalai and Halar, and I just go, what are you doing? Like, shake my head, and I just go, you're just, like, I get the whole play to not lose thing, but that is all you're doing, and then you're just praying that at some point you run into one of your combo pieces. And that, like, to me, pulls at my heartstrings and then I see the results where they're like 40th, and I'm like, get good, scrub.
Sure. Sure.
So
no, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Rurik Thar that just did it. You stacks the table out, cast that, win if you can, but protect Rurik Thar, and you're non-creature decks are just going to fold to it.
Yeah, they sit there and do nothing until they find a way to deal with it, or until someone can come up with something.
And that could also just give you enough time you need to have accrued so much value that you're going to win. Like, heaven forbid you have the Cutsil and the Rurik in play. What do you kill first? That's a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, for sure. But this list is very interesting. Let's keep her moving. C121 CKET. Congratulations on your dub.
You did a very good job. That's a spicy list.
Let's check out your list as our final one for the day. And
all right,
here we are. Welcome home, Tordeth.
Thank you. I'm going to brag a little bit. I feel uniquely qualified to talk about this given Rocco's last 2 tournament performances. So I won 2 tournaments ago, and I went undefeated into Swiss and lost in the semifinals pod in the last tournament, and that was a super major, which I call 60 plus people.
Yeah. I can't really see in the first 12, 16, 20 cards any weaknesses outside of maybe your opinion on Bloodroot Apothecary.
Sure. So the 2 Bloomburrow creatures that I currently have slotted, I have yet to actually test them in a tournament, but the first time I came on to talk to you all, we had talked about everything in this deck has to do at least 2 things, right? Or it's not necessarily good enough in my list. So keeping in mind also Delny is a good jumping off point where if I have Delny, the game's just kind of over. But Mist Breath Elder, I can turn to Rocco on 1 basically every game that the deck is going to sit in.
Yeah. At
the beginning of my upkeep, return another creature to its owner's hand. I'm going to just put Rocco back to hand. I now have a 2/2 attacker, which will deal damage to any Adnaz list. 2's no joke. If I do, it becomes a 3/3. Delny will trigger this twice, so I can put another creature back, heaven forbid. Let's say I need to bounce the oof to start my birthing pod package.
Right.
Or it's killed and Rocco's left, which keeps my Bloom Tender on. So either way, a Rocco on 1 isn't bad here. But it's a 2/2 for 1. That's also just on rate.
I was just going to say that it is pushed in the stats for what I guess in its simplistic design is return itself. You could return it to your hand to get some sort of like bonus ETB effect off of other cards. But here in the wide expanse of cEDH, that is not what it does. Like this is in its design in limited, it bounces itself so that your frogs can continue to trigger and you continue to get +1/+1 counters. But this here is basically a secondary symbiote, but can push anything that on your battlefield back to your hand. So that,
correct,
like you said, pushing the oof back to your hand while it locked everybody else down, like Wunderbar. Like, here we go. Like that I love that little tech, that little hint of spice here. I love that you're at least giving it an opportunity to perform because the ability is strong enough.
And in our Christmas Land scenario where I have Delny, I can return it to my hand, which now becomes a pitch card for Endurance. And I know we talked, Endurance should be in any NAYA list, if not any green list.
Yeah, you need the opportunity to be able to interact at instant speed to stop breach lines from popping off.
Endurance also doesn't say opponent, it says any player. So if you need to get part of your Kiki package back into your list, you put Kiki or you put your package back into your library and tutor it up with Rocco.
Yeah,
Coincidentally, Endurance is also a 3-drop, which could be potted if you hardcast Endurance.
Wow. That's pretty good.
and then this list is stacks adjacent. I live and breathe Baylen Vala, but Bloodbrewed Apothecary says you can go ahead and try an infinite Dockside loop. You can go ahead and try and breach loop with your LED, but you only get 5.
Yeah, you only get so far before this kills you. And that's, I guess, where I was curious of your opinion on it, because is 4 treasures enough to get around it? And there are other channels, like even Play to Win has come out and they're just like, we don't think it's that good because, it's only restricting for 4 treasures, or, which is the primary thing. And I'm just, in my back of my mind, I'm like, I think this is more of a play around than they're giving it, they're not giving it enough respect.
Well,
it's harder to play around.
Most of the community also said the same thing about Preston, and now a lot of Derevi lists won't play without it.
Yeah. I agree. It's like Preston, if you guys are unfamiliar with Preston, it's 3 and a white for a legendary rabbit wizard that says whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 0/1 white illusion. And then it has an activated ability of 1 and a white, sacrifice 5 illusions, exile target non-land permanent. You're probably not using that last ability, but it is there. And then it's also a 2/5. So it's got a booty. And it also triggers with Delny.
It does. And actually, for what it's worth, that's a win condition with Felidar Guardian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
because Felidar Guardian's a 1/4.
Felidar. Let's just go through the combo. Why not?
Yeah.
Because by the time Felidar Guardian comes out, it's already too late. So Preston is in play, and we trick Felidar Guardian into play with Birthing Pod, with Rocco, with an invasion, with a finale. What it's going to do is it's going to enter. Preston's going to see it and say, make another token copy of Felidar Guardian. The first copy of Felidar Guardian is going to flicker your Plateau or your Savannah. The second one is going to flicker your original Felidar Guardian.
Oh, infinite mana.
It's going to be infinite mana and infinite tokens because they don't sacrifice. They're non-legendary. So you can sack the illusions and you exile everybody's non-land permanents. That's usually enough to have the rest of the table concede.
Yowza.
And if nothing else, before you start to use your infinite mana to loop with the table, you exile everybody's permanents, you cast Rocco, get an endurance, put your library back together, Rocco again, get Kiki Jiki, use Felidar Guardian to kill the table with haste.
Wow. So not only does it have the ability to generate infinite mana, but that infinite mana, aside from that, you also produce infinite illusions, which
you do.
You can use the infinite mana, use the illusions to this is essentially food chain. Working
that's actually option 3. If you have the tokens, you can use those for 1 mana for food chain.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that with infinite illusions, infinite mana, you can keep pushing exile target non-land permanent, keep pushing Rocco back to the command zone and using that infinite mana to recast it. So those two
Correct.
In a vacuum work the same as food chain.
Yes, it does.
Wow. Preston wins games. You heard it here first.
Preston literally wins games. And you can Birthing Pod Rocco into Preston because it's a 4-drop versus a 3-drop.
Whoa. There were things I questioned Preston for a long time. Card reads like it does good stuff, but now, my neurons are firing. This is crazy. Preston's crazy.
So I do love Preston. If you can use Preston plus green, And I think that's its issue, is it's held up by its color identity. Mono white doesn't do a lot to make Preston viable. But with the addition of your Finale, your Invasion, your Court of Callings, it just allows you to win at instant speed.
Now, question, because this is a card from way back in old EDH times, before cEDH. I mean, you know, like Tooth and Nail, right?
Sure.
Or Smuggler Surprise, let's say. If you Tooth and Nail Preston and Felidar Guardian out onto the battlefield, like entwine it, that just wins you the game, correct?
It does, yes. And that's why if you have... I'm currently not on Gandalf or Elishnorn Mother of Machines, but in those lists, if I can Rocco 4/4, I layer the triggers to where my Preston enters off the first Rocco trigger.
Yeah. And
then the Felidar Guardian will enter off the second Rocco trigger, generating me immediate instant value.
Yeah. So, yeah, Gandalf will do essentially what you need, like, out of that, you know, that tooth and nail scenario. Okay. That's cool. Wow. Opening my mind to all the possibilities. Gandalf and Preston.
The other thing that your Preston will do is the second creature that it makes will also trigger your Cloudstone Curio, because it's not an artifact. So if you need to, for whatever reason, allow the first two to enter, you can ignore the first two triggers, use the illusion to bounce something else if you need to.
Whoa. There are so many layers to this, which it's clear that you've cracked the code here. Like, there aren't any other lists that we talked about that, like, these are lists that are competing, like, at top tables. These are lists that are, like, winning. And not a single one of them is looking at Preston the way you are, or Gandalf, or, you know, like, these particular lines. So this is crazy stuff right here, and not in a bad way. I mean, like, I love crazy. And
well, thank you.
I love this.
I think the other lists were way too early. My comment on I love channel is just will always be the same.
You're running
Twin Shot Sniper,
exactly.
Really good. It kills most things. The 2 is usually enough, but the Trumpeting Carnosaur in addition to deal 3, not using... it uses the stack because it's a channel ability. You can respond to it, but it can't be countered except by literally a trick bind.
Yeah, there's also that other card from Modern Horizons 3, that uncommon counter spell that is
true.
Has replicate on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Trumpeting Carnosaur is fantastic. Also, if you just need to turn your creature sideways, it's a 7/6 with trample that has Discover 5 on it.
I was wondering if you you are on Cloud Shift, so there is potential there. Obviously, there are a lot of ETBs here. Lorna the Third Path, boom, beautiful. Moonblessed Cleric, ETB, like Delny, Cloud Shift, Magnifying Lens, like the White Mane Lion. Sure, you know, instant speed, get another bounce or something of the like. So, yeah, you have a lot of ETBs going on here, and Cloud Shift just helps abuse that even more. Not only that, but it will also allow you to bounce Gilded Drake if Gilded Drake happens to steal something incredibly important to you.
Yeah, I say, heaven forbid my Dockside or my Kiki goes away. Because of that, I can Cloud Shift the Gilded Drake, maintain that bounce, and get it back.
Yeah.
Notably about the Moonblessed Cleric, it's also an elf, which I can return with Wirewood Symbiote.
Ho-ho! A human elf cleric.
Correct.
Wow. That card also getting better by the day. There are just so many more enchantments that are coming. Well, obviously, we have the strongest enchantments in the list. Smothering Tide, Trouble in Pairs, Touch Spirit Realm. One can, it's interaction. Food Chain, Survival of the Fittest. And there's another enchantment that you're on that I don't know if you knew this, but when we did our Modern Horizons 3 review, I gave this card glowing remarks. Birthing Ritual. How has it been performing for you?
I think this card does not push forward a win at instant speed mentality. This is very much I am going to just dig for more answers, because a lot of this deck is very toolboxy. But if you, Christmas Land, have your Academy Rector in play, but no way to kill it, you need to save the Abrade or something else. The Lightning Bolt just doesn't exist right now. And Swords in Path, exile it, they don't kill it. This allows you to look at your top 7. You get to then sacrifice another creature, but it's weirdly better than Birthing Pod, because Birthing Pod is literally N+1. This has Eldritch Evolution text on it. So I can use my Rector and put a 6 or less down. I think it's a 5. So it's a 5 or less CMC creature into the battlefield. So if we do the math, I'm on 36 creatures. I'm looking at 7 cards. So a third of my deck is creatures. So I should see at least 2 creatures in the 7 that I pick up with Birthing Ritual. I have only 1 creature that is more than 5 mana. So the odds of me actually finding a creature that I can put into play off of any of my creatures that are being sacrificed with Birthing Ritual are effectively 100%. So for 2 mana at end step, which was the problem that we were having with Sylvan Library, you pay 2 mana and you have to wait 4 turns to get to it. This doesn't do that. You pay 2 mana and you immediately sacrifice a creature and chain up into the rest of your deck. And since most of them have enter the battlefield effects, it's going to get an immediate effect. But if you do not respond to the trigger on the Birthing Ritual, that creature has now just entered.
Dude, I overlooked entirely the line that says X or less. The Eldritch Evolution, that's why Eldritch Evolution is goated. This is
correct.
Woo! This is a trigger that your opponent, if they have the ability to trick bind it, they're likely not going to.
Correct.
Wow.
There is a lot of text that is very convoluted that once it's broken down into its constituent sentences, if you treat it like a modal spell and you resolve top to bottom, starts to make sense.
Look at the top 7. Done. Doing that right now. You may sacrifice a creature. Done. I'll do it. You may put a creature with its mana value +1 or less onto the battlefield. Wow. Or less. That is the thing that this makes this a huge can of worms. There's
correct.
Yes.
And I'm constantly wanting to put any Rocco pilot wants to put Rocco back into the command zone as quick as humanly possible.
Jesus, just imagine revealing the dockside off of this.
Yep.
Yeah, or a Draneth. Oh, or Delny. Rocco can see 90% of almost 90%. It is 84% of the creatures in this list. Rocco can see them and pull them out. Yeah.
And to be able to go from let's say I land, pedal, Lotus Petal, Rocco on 1 or Rocco on 0, get the Dryad Arbor because it blocks. It also produces a mana the next turn.
I saw that.
I tap the Dryad Arbor, tap another land, put the Birthing Ritual out. I make a land drop, cast my Soul Ring, sack the Rocco, get a Linvala, Keeper of Silence. that's all turn 2, and it's all viable. That's not necessarily Christmas Land scenario. Maybe the extra pedal is, but you're going to mulligan for a hand like that. That's what the deck wants to do.
Yeah, like this deck takes advantage of a lot of like new cards. So I don't think anybody was looking at like cards the way that like are looking at Mistbreath Elder even as like an option in cEDH, which it's great that it's finding a home here because I want to see how it does. But even in Modern Horizons 3, it felt like Modern Horizons 2 had far more impact, but you have seen Modern Horizons 3 as the toolbox to like further strengthen your deck, where, you know, you have obviously Birthing Ritual. Holy crap. Like, I just had a moment of revelation just for you explaining that. And then like Flare of Fortitude was a card that we talked about as an instant speed sack outlet that protects your win condition.
It does. If nothing else, it can sacrifice the Rector for free.
Exactly. That's ultimately what I mean is like it can sack Rocco and put it back in the zone. Sweet. Right? But this also kills the Rector. It does. Yeah.
With the added benefit of giving my permanents hexproof and indestructible. And that's what I mean by a card needs to do multiple things. Even the card itself does multiple things.
Right. Yeah, this one does. Like, that was the big thing that we were talking about when it was just projecting what this cycle of flares would do. We saw the blue one, we saw the red one, and we were like, well, the white one has to be an instant. Otherwise, it's dead. Like, you know, it's like the green one, Flare of Cultivation, is a sorcery for no reason at all. Should be an instant. That Cultivate ability should be instant speed at this point. Like, anyway, I digress. This one had to be an instant in order for it to be playable, and we got our wish, and it just does, like, and the big thing was this brings Food Chain up another level, or at least it brings the potential for it up, because you're allowed to sack either Rector for it to pop off.
Yes, and if you're on either Rector, which this card should allow going up redundancy, it will also protect your Vivian until you flicker her.
Yes. Yeah, that's also another big part, is that like when this triggers, they, like, correct me if I'm wrong, they both go in at this basically at the same time, like the triggers do, and so you get to choose the outcome of those.
Yep. Yeah. So the dice trigger will be on the stack with the spell. You allow the dice trigger to resolve, put any of your enchantments into play, then you give it hexproof and indestructible.
Yeah. Beautiful. Sexy. Are there any other cards in the list that, like, you feel that while you have your soapbox need to be talked about?
Yeah. I think Hall of Helios Generosity doesn't see enough play in Rocco lists, where a lot of Rocco pilots will struggle at least to convert into semifinals and finals pods. Is they're going to put a win on the stack, they're going to do it again, they're going to put 2 or 3 on the stack in a single turn. If you get stopped, you've just now allowed the person going after you to win, because all the interaction has been wasted on you. This deck allows you to start on turn 3 and attempt to win once, twice, stop, win once again on turn 4, then go to turn 5 and try it again. It allows you to cast your Food Chain, this Hall of Helios Generosity, let it get countered, and then go back to your turn in upkeep, put the Food Chain back on top. So it's just a permanent Noxious Survival for your enchantments. The Birthing Ritual, your Survival of the Fittest, your Smothering Tide, even the Splinter Twin combo with Goblin Sharpshooter, it's never really dead, and you can get it at any time with crop rotation. Plus, if we're talking Modern Horizons 3, Shifting Woodland will also potentially become a copy of it. can't stress enough, Holly Helios Generosity is fantastic, and with crop rotation, it's tutorable. Winding Canyons, I had talked about you should be able to win at instant speed. The issue I was running into with Emergent Zone is you get once. Winding Canyons allows you to, every single turn, pay 2 mana, and my creatures now gain flash until the end of that turn.
Why is this the first time I'm ever hearing about this card?
It's deep reserved list, maybe?
It is $20 apparently.
Yep.
Yeah. Winding Canyons. Like, I think Emergent Zone has gained some level of merit because it is just, you may cast spells. And so this, how cEDH has evolved in recent time, like, you know, I think Emergent Zone had already existed by the time the cEDH community had like grown and flourished, and so that may have been the default option, which is why I never really saw this seeing play. But holy crap, repeatable flash creatures in a creature based toolbox deck is invaluable. Like, it's exactly why you're probably playing crop rotation.
Yeah, that and the Cradle, right?
Yeah.
So, but if I have the Cradle, I can get the Canyons, and if I have the Canyons, I can get the Cradle. The other card that I really like is Yavimaya Hollow.
The regenerate target creature.
Correct. So it'll allow me to regenerate Linvala or Preston, or it'll allow me to regenerate the Draneth Magistrate if need be. Now I can keep the Bloodroot Apothecary alive. Delny's allowed to stay alive for another turn.
That's
those have helped me quite a bit.
Not only that, but the ability to play off the back foot, which is what, like, a lot of Naya decks don't have the ability or don't have the option for, right? Is that, like, I can leave mana up, I have the Yavimaya Hollow, I have the game under control, I just need for them to play into my hands so that I can strike when they have their guard down. Because if I am able to protect, or, you know, able to regenerate the Draneth that they are wasting a piece of interaction on, like, here we go. They're tapped out. This is my window. I can do this now. Like, I'm sure there are windows that you see that opponents just have no idea are even there.
That might come with a lot of reps.
Yeah.
But that's also what I use Final Fortune for. I just noticed that none of the other lists are on Deflecting SWAT, which seems funny to me because we want to cast Rocco as soon as humanly possible. Maybe they're not bouncing it the way I am. They're sacrificing it. Only the first list was on Noxious Survival, which I also feel is odd. Noxious Survival is it's a free spell. It costs 2 life.
Yeah.
It recurs your best piece, but it also allows you to Fate Seal an opponent if they want to pull something back out during an Underworld Breach loop, or they go ahead and Vamp Tutor. Well, you can just go ahead and put that fetch land right on top of their Vamp Tutor target and give them another turn to wait until they get to it.
Yeah, and there are things like putting the Brain Freeze, like at the opportune moment, putting the Brain Freeze on top, and then they're just stuck.
Correct. After let the triggers resolve, let the first one resolve, then hit it. Final Showdown is also a card that is worth every dollar that you can put into it. I think it's the best spree card out there, hands down. So for a white, start the cost. 1 colorless. First mode, all creatures lose all abilities until end of turn. This does the same thing on that mode that Touch the Spirit Realm is going to do, and it's the same cost. So I can make sure that the Draneth, the opposition agent, are just off for the rest of the turn. It also says when Tivit hits, it does not do its combat damage trigger.
Yeah. Right, it stops Tivit, which is important. You know, same with Trouble in Pairs. also stops the extra turn machine.
It does.
Yeah.
Final Showdown also stops Tayum.
Yeah. It's it like Nadu is another. This turns off Nadu for a turn, so that you can keep the game going. It is incredibly relevant. While this doesn't stop ETB effects because it only stops the creatures that currently exist on the battlefield, like, you'd be surprised how many people need current certain permanents to stay in place and have the abilities for them to be able to do the thing that they need to do. And
you and Flash like to talk about how low can we get our CMC while maintaining impressive value. This card, for usually at most 3 mana, is so modal and so flexible that I don't see why more people aren't running this.
It's the only instant speed board wipe that we have that's worth playing. Like,
I agree with that completely.
Yeah, and we talk about being able to interact. This is it. This is the way to wipe the board. This gets rid of all the stacks pieces that you hate. The Draneth Magistrate. The game goes long enough, this will come into play, and this will sway the game in your favor. Like, I do love the card, and it has grown on me. And I think it was, I'm not throwing these guys under the bus or anything, but Play to Win had said this was a silver bullet, and silver bullets historically do not pan out. This one pans out.
When it's a silver bullet against 10 different decks, it's no longer a silver bullet. It's just a big ass gun.
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter what the bullet's made of. Mm-hmm. So, this doesn't particularly answer one deck. It particularly answers most decks that matter in the current meta, like at the competitive scene. So I agree fully with Final Showdown, and like I said, it's been growing on me quite a bit, and it's in my NAYA cEDH primer list, like with my mana base and the cards that I automatically include in pretty much everything as I start a new build. Final Showdown's in there.
So Soapbox, that card is absolutely included in mine. I also don't underestimate a Whitemane Lion. It has flash. It's a 2/2. It's triggered twice by Delny. It allows you to, if you're going to have your Collector Roof killed on your turn in end step, going into another player with Dockside loops, it allows you to at least protect something else. The Collector Roof might not be killed, or it might not be on the table, but at least it's saved. And if you have your Winding Canyons untapped, you cast the Collector Roof again. Yeah,
that's fair. Like, Whitemane Lion has been a card that I've underestimated in the past, but this is the single Temur Sabertooth trigger that sometimes is enough just to get you there, right? This bounces the Dockside back to your hand so that you can replay and get the mana necessary to, win the game. Who knows? At that point, you don't know how many treasures you're generating, which is why when I play test hands, it's hard to really speculate how powerful Whitemane Lion is, just because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. You can see its utility and what it does on the card, but each situation, I'm sure it has its own, it's powerful in a lot of different variable situations. So, and I'm going to have to test it out at the very least if I'm playing Dockside. I feel like it's almost an auto include now if you have some sort of benefit from ETB triggers in general.
It is. If you have any reason to play Cloudstone, this should be just paired with it.
Right. If you're not in black, if you're not playing Bowmaster, Dockside, Cloudstone, Loop, Whitemane, Dockside, Cloudstone, Loop is just as good.
Well, so I guess while we're on the soapbox, I keep patting myself on the back on a little bit. I want to give a little love to another pilot that really helped push my piloting direction. So hats off to Sasha. She helped build the deck. The way I pilot and see the list, a buddy online, her handle is Stormcrow. She looked at my list, compared it to hers, and said, all these other lists are running Greater Gargadon. That's the route to go. I don't think that's right. Maybe you should try a more interactive Rocco approach and make it more toolboxy. And that's ultimately where this style of play has come from.
Yeah. No, I've seen Greater Gargadon in a few lists, and it just doesn't. I get the 1 mana sack outlet. I do. But that card had its time. And while it is good, sack outlet is good, its time is over, especially in NAYA sacrifice builds. Or NAYA ETB or NAYA whatever. Maybe there's something else, another commander that comes along that allows Greater Gargadon to like see the light again. But in particular with Rocco, I think you're on the right track. I don't think it has a place anymore. You have found value with Trumpeting Carnosaur more than having the sack outlet for things like having the sack outlet on Gargadon, where you're finding that the Mistbreath Elder provides you the same inherent value. Like Wirewood Symbiote, beautiful. Like there, I just don't see, you have to have it in your hand at a particular moment where Rocco allows you to tutor the card that is going to do a very similar thing, if not better than Gargadon can. Like if you can one Rocco on turn 2, go get a Symbiote, push it back to hand, go big next turn. Like that's what Symbiote allows for. So, yeah, Gargadon's dead to me, dude. And I'm so
Gargadon
glad.
Who?
I'm glad.
Gargadon drinks Mr. Pibb.
Pibb extra.
Ugh.
Ugh, is right. Well, yeah, I'm glad you used your soapbox to shout out a couple more players because, I think at the end of the day, regardless of how much effort we put in solo, it's the people that we play with at the table, the people who we bounce ideas off of, that make our decks great. Like they open our eyes to new opportunities. They open our eyes to new potential pieces that, or they see faults in our lines of thinking that help make the decks better. So yeah. Thank you, Sasha. And who was the other person? Stormcrow. Thank you, Sasha and Stormcrow. All right. Final thoughts on Rocco. What a good card.
Play Rocco like a toolbox and a Swiss Army knife, and he'll never let you down.
Damn straight. All right. Let's get the heck out of here. You know, when we started this episode, before we hit record, we said, how long do we want to go for? And I said, well, maybe 45 minutes or so. We've doubled that. This is the most in-depth Rocco cEDH breakdown and a juicy little nugget for all you listeners out there who are just looking to digest more cEDH content. Tordeth, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me again.
Yeah, of course. Anytime, my dude. Anytime. If you have any other decks that you particularly want to reach out to me about to get back on here for, you just let me know. You're welcome anytime.
Can do.
All right. This has been another episode of the MoxStars podcast. If you want to support the show, you can do so by finding us on YouTube, where you can subscribe. We just hit 200 subscribers. Woo! You can and ring that bell for more notifications. You can also find us on all major podcasting platforms, where we just surpassed 1,400 downloads a month. What? You can also support us directly on Patreon, like our Pepperheads. For $3 a month, you can be an official Pepperhead and get one free entry into each of our bi-weekly giveaways, or be a cherry vanilla Pepperhead like Will Rule, K Mr. K, UWP Quirt, Demon 82, Tommy Cypher, Jacob Hibbard, Ravenlift, and Kyle. This week's giveaway is a proxied cEDH deck of my own construction. I have built Baylen, and I'm refining some of the pieces, and next week we will find out who is the lucky winner for PROXIED Menace built Baylen deck. You'll get a fresh 100 sleeves and a deck box with MoxStars stickers. So if you don't like the deck, you got some new sleeves and a brand new deck box with some sweet MoxStars flair. All right. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. I don't think we missed anything on Rocco. That was thorough. So let's get the heck out of here. Peace.
Peace.